Hello everyone, welcome back to Trek a Day, and today's a little bonus episode, something different, because I wanted to discuss something and love to hear what your thoughts are on Strange New Worlds. I finally caught up with some of the more modern Trek series. If you are a fan of my other channel that I've been doing for years now, you know that I don't do a whole lot of streaming. I'm very much a physical media person, whether it's movies or books or video games. I'm very much in the realm of physical. Don't do a whole lot of streaming, so I wasn't quite caught up on some of the series. And the one in particular I want to mention is Strange New Worlds in today's video, and I will be doing just sort of an off-the-cuff my impressions of some of these shows, trying not to get into any kind of spoilers. Eventually talk definitely more in depth with a couple of them in the future, but for now, just kind of my impressions. Strange New Worlds, I was interested in as it was coming out, but had a little bit of trepidation after really just not enjoying Discovery, and I wasn't alone in that either. It was one of those things that, I've talked about it before on the other channel, the premiere of Discovery, and the whole family gathered, and I had a bunch of friends that were gathering with their families, and I knew so many people that were watching it, and by the end of the first season, it was pretty much like 3 people that I knew were still watching it, and it just kind of fizzled out from there, and then not really liking the first 2 seasons of Star Trek Picard either, so I was kind of on the fence about whether I'd even give Strange New Worlds a shot, or whether maybe some of the newer stuff just wasn't to my taste. And I don't understand people that harp on that kind of thing, and hate watching. I do not comprehend that mentality at all. To me, it's, if you don't like something, you move on with your life and watch other stuff. Who cares? But Strange New Worlds, I finally sat down and watched the entire first season, and I loved it. I was not expecting to like this anywhere near as much as I did. I am so on board with it, and I'm really happy that we're getting at least 2 more seasons. Season 2 is coming out very soon, and then Season 3 is a guarantee as well, and we'll see where it goes from there. But man, I am really on board with it, so much more than I thought. I thought it was fantastic. Now, it didn't quite recapture the level of love that I have for 90s Trek. It wasn't quite the level of something like Deep Space Nine or TNG or Voyager, but especially as a modern science fiction series, it is one of the closest things that's out there that has recaptured some of that classic Trek feel. A lot of the exploration and positivity and the humor and the way the drama plays out, the way things are structured within the stories, and I love episodic television that carries over character growth and emotional growth, but the actual plot within the episode is very self-contained. So you have the best of both worlds, which is what I like about this, how it is that episodic television that I find to be the most rewatchable form of television, what I really, really enjoy. I can just put on a random episode in the future, but also it's not just things are erased and start over next week. Still carries over that character growth and emotional baggage, so I like the way that it's playing out so far. And for me, it's second only to the 3rd season of The Orville: New Horizons, and as far as capturing that classic Trek feel in a show that doesn't feel like it's trying to be retro. It feels like a modern television show, but still finds that balance of capturing that classic feel and bringing it into a more modern package. So it really rides that line for me, and does so in a brilliant way, both in the storytelling, as I've mentioned, and in the visuals. One of the things, like the look of a lot of the visual effects, the look of the Enterprise, it really rides that difficult fine line in between being faithful and truthful to a classic, well-loved look, but also looking like something very new and appropriate for something that's airing currently. It really kind of so far masters that balance, which is a really hard thing to do, and I think they really pulled that off. I enjoy everything about it. the show visually and again structurally with the story and the characters. That's, of course, to me, that's the most important thing, because I love great science fiction tales, but I also have to care about the characters within it, the main cast, the recurring people that you're going to spend all this time with, that you're inviting into your home and getting close to, and maybe seeing parts of yourself in them, or exploring things that are so foreign to you that it opens your mind and you see new avenues and new perspectives. Like, that's what I really want to see, and that really was captured here for me. I think Anson Mount is fantastic as Pike, and I like what they're doing with him, because one of the things about TOS that was always interesting in comparison to growing up with TNG was that the era that the original series and this take place in, there's a little bit of a Wild West vibe, a little bit of we're really more on our own, where we can't quite as easily reach another ship or a star base, and there is a little more of a lax attitude in some regards. And I like the way Christopher Pike is being played out, and he's very approachable and easygoing in as far as his demeanor, in a way that makes him stand out. He's not just a copycat of a previous Star Trek captain. He really is his own personality and his vibe, and you feel it through the way he interacts and with his group dinners and stuff, and his big elaborate the kitchen that he uses, and you really kind of get that feeling, and it fits. And I think part of what also makes that fit is Una, number one, Rebecca Romaine. I think the balance between the two of them, the younger officers, called where fun goes to die. Her stoicness, her seriousness is a great balance that they work well together. And it's just funny because my two favorite modern science fiction series, in both Strange New Worlds and The Orville, I really like the first officer. I like the second in command the best, more than the captain. I don't know why. Commander Kelly, I like there, and I think there's a lot of parallels between that character and Una on Strange New Worlds, so it's not a surprise that she's my favorite character so far. Her and La'an are my two favorites so far, coming out of the end of the first season. They're the two that I enjoy the most and identify with the most. I really enjoy those two characters in particular. I enjoy their history together and their dynamic, and those are two that I really want to see the growth of them moving forward, and there's a lot to uncover that's revealed in this first season. Some secrets and some past traumas that I think are ripe for some great storytelling in season 2 and beyond. Another standout for me is Nurse Christine Chapel, a character that was played by Majel Roddenberry in the original series, and I really enjoyed that character and would be one of my top picks for characters that I wish had a little more exploration and screen time within the original series. So I'm glad that they're doing this, and they're doing it in a way that is respectful to the original portrayal, but also allows for a lot of interpretation and growth. So I think that's been done really well. And in a very similar vein, Cadet Uhura is another character that I wish had a little more, and you do within the books and the animated series and stuff like that for Uhura. But within this context, it's again something that I think is working really well so far, and we've had a really good performance and portrayal. And there really aren't any characters that I am ambivalent about or dislike, which is also a great sign. Lieutenant Ortegas is also good. Dr. Joseph Mbenga I am liking a lot, and I liked him a lot more as the season went on. He was one of those that I liked him from the very first time you met him, but he wasn't up there as like a favorite. He was kind of towards the background as far as my enjoyment of the character, but I really was getting into things with him without spoiling anything. And I think that he's going to be a standout character in the future. I have this feeling about him, and the performance is so good that I have a feeling that he's going to be much more of a standout character as it goes on for me. And Bruce Horak's Hemmer was a pleasant surprise. The Enar offshoot of the Andorians, getting into Andorian culture, all that was one of my favorite elements of Star Trek Enterprise, especially in season 4, and it was cool to see that revisited, and I liked his character a lot. He was fantastic. I thought he was great, and it was definitely, to me, was one of the standout performances as well. So, really, really good. And then I have to mention Ethan Peck as Spock. And this was one of the hardest ones for me to really get into at first. And even going back and looking at the Kelvin Timeline movies, because Leonard Nimoy has been such a powerful influence on me growing up, even outside of Star Trek, with, especially with a lot of voiceovers for popular documentaries and just In Search of, and so many things that I grew up with. And that character of Spock was always such a presence throughout my entire life, that it's one of those characters where it was a little bit harder to see other people play that character, even if they did a good job. But especially as the series went on, I think this portrayal of Spock is my favorite non-Nimoy Spock after going through this first season. I really, really liked the work that was done so far, and I think that it was a great performance. Not take anything from Zachary Quinto, he did, a good job as well. I just felt more engaged and okay, in a way of phrasing it, with this portrayal of Spock, and I think it was done very well. I like the way the characters' relationships are done, and it really, to me, also helps strengthen some elements of TOS, because it really makes you believe even more now, and especially as this show goes on, Spock's willingness to go above and beyond in the menagerie for Captain Christopher Pike. So I think that it's really being that's probably, I think, one of the hardest, if not the hardest, character to get away with portraying. I think that it's really, I have a lot of respect for anyone who even takes a chance at playing a really important legacy character like that, but I think Spock in particular, for some reason, is just so difficult, and I think it was really captured, and I liked it. So, I mean, through the whole cast, again, there's no one I disliked. I liked everyone in the main cast, and a lot of the secondary cast was great as well. Even little things like seeing the first captain of the Enterprise, Captain April, like little appearances with him, that was really cool. I enjoyed that as well. And I think it's doing an excellent job of having that familiarity with classic Star Trek elements, but not feeling like it's something that is just relying on nostalgia to get by. It isn't doing that, which I think is another worry that I had going in, where it was either going to be so completely ridiculous and off the wall and not respect anything about what came before it, or it was going to go the opposite direction and be just fan service the show and have no real depth or meaning of its own. And it didn't go either of those directions. It seems to be both in the portrayal of the characters and in the writing and in the visual effects. I think everything really is riding that line of having that sense of familiarity at the same time being its own thing, and being able to pull by its own weight through the storytelling. So yeah, I am absolutely loving it so far. Coming out of season 1, Christina Chong and Rebecca Romaine are my two favorite performances, my two favorite character portrayals as we're getting in through season 1. We'll see how the show goes. I'd love to hear who some of your favorite characters are from season 1, whether or not you like this show. I'd really like to hear what your reaction is to it, because I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of different reactions and experiences. But again, I think it's a fantastic show so far, and it really took me by surprise, because I was a little bit on the fence about even watching it, and even in getting started, I was like, okay, maybe it has a good start and it'll fizzle out for me, but it didn't. I thought it went, and I really enjoyed it. I am so looking forward to more seasons of this. I hope they start getting some action figures out soon. There's, I think, at least one book out so far, but yeah, I'm totally on board. It's just nice to have a current Star Trek show that feels like Star Trek. And the other show that I was a bit kind of, I don't know, getting into, but I'm really enjoying, and Amanda's watching this one with me, Star Trek Prodigy. And it's kind of a weird one for me. I'm in this weird place with Prodigy. because it is a show that is obviously aimed towards a younger audience, and we don't have a kid to watch it with, and I'm not watching it as a kid, so I have to kind of view it in a different mindset than I would something like Strange New Worlds. It's kind of this, I'm watching a kid's show, but at the same time, it's doing a really good job as a kid's show, just in terms of the writing, because it's not dumbed down for kids, it's just child appropriate. And that's always the best children's programming. Things that don't talk down to children, they treat them like growing individuals that just need a more straightforward and simplistic portrayal of themes and elements to be understood. But you don't need to dumb down the actual themes and elements and storytelling that's there. You just need to present it in a different way to be successful. And I think that Prodigy is really doing that. It feels like it's respectful to its audience, and it's the kind of show that kids and adults can watch together and both get enjoyment from. So from that perspective, I'm really liking it, and I do like the characters, and I like the feel of it. The only things that I'm not quite as into, one, because again, it is still, a kid's show, so I'm probably not going to be as invested and passionately involved as I am with some other shows, but I still want to see more at the end of every episode. It's still a lot of fun. I still want to see the journey of these characters, so I'm really liking it. And Amanda likes it, I think, a lot more than me. She's really into it. We watched, I think, the first 3 episodes, and then she wanted me to go and pre-order all the action figures. Like, she was that into it immediately from the start. So as a household, we're really enjoying Prodigy and a lot of the throwbacks to Voyager in particular, because it's a show that we really like, and that's Amanda's overall favorite Star Trek, so she's really enjoying that. The only things that I don't personally like about it, and they don't bother her as much, but visually, it's just artistically not a style that I like. It's not an issue of quality, it's an issue of style. Like, some of the space visuals, like in the intro and things like that, are fantastic, and I love them. But just the overall visual style and the way the characters look, it's just something I've never really liked. It reminds me of the Clone Wars TV series, and I never really watched any of that, particularly because visually I couldn't get into it. That's just not a visual style that I enjoy at all. That kind of odd, that style of CG I don't like. When it comes to animated shows, it's just not a visual presentation that I find appealing. So that's the one thing that kind of takes me out of it a little bit sometimes. Amanda, she said it doesn't bother her at all. She's really into it. But yeah, so it's a little bit of a mixed thing for me, but I'm still really enjoying what they're doing with the storytelling, and again, how they're treating a kid's show. It doesn't feel like a kiddie show, it just feels like a kid appropriate show. So I'm liking where it's going, and I really want to see more. So that's one that I'm definitely excited for. And I've started Star Trek Picard Season 3. I am giving in to streaming that one because I'm really interested. Even though I just did not enjoy those first 2 seasons. Some of the things I was hearing about Season 3, while trying to avoid any big spoilers, had me very intrigued, and I'm like, maybe I will really get into this 3rd season. And I'm not going to talk about it much here because I've just started it. I will eventually come on once the season is wrapped up, and I'll talk about it more in depth. But so far, it's been the complete opposite experience of the first 2. The first 2 I just could not get into, but this one was pretty immediately. I'm enjoying it. It's be interesting to talk about in the future, but so far I've been having a very positive experience with that as well. So I'm looking forward to talking about that in the future, and definitely getting more in depth with Strange New Worlds in particular, especially since Season 2 is coming out soon, so you'll be hearing me talk about that definitely a lot more in the future. And Prodigy as it goes along, and we'll see what this Starfleet Academy series is like. That one, I'm really excited for it, but I'm also a little worried about what direction they're going to take it in, because I really hope it is a series that is more of a, I almost want to say like WB or CW approach. It sounds odd, but I think that this teen college age show should really feel like that, and the problems should be more relationships and personal issues, and dealing with growing up, and really trying to, maybe struggling with some of your classes and seeing maybe legacy characters as professors. I really hope it focuses on the coming of age and struggling in finding yourself and those elements, and stays away from becoming a uncovering a world-ending scenario or some giant megalithic threat. I really want it to. I really hope that it stays on a more personal level. I think that will be a very successful show. It could be really interesting. I worry a little bit about them trying to force in a giant, Federation destroying, world eating threat somewhere under there. I don't think it needs it. Not everything needs that. Sometimes the personal issues and struggles are the more interesting thing. Maybe even throw something in, like a lot of strange cultural differences that people have to work out. Maybe it's someone who has been very sheltered in their first time on this college campus experience, encountering lots of different cultures, and relying on finding understanding and seeing how all these differences actually make the Federation stronger, and those type of elements. I think that will make the series more enjoyable. So we'll see where it goes and where the future of this stuff takes us. But right now, I am very excited to continue with some of the things I've been watching, finishing up Star Trek Picard, and then Strange New Worlds. As I said, I am completely on board.